Hello, listeners. We're Shedding Light, and I'm Candy.
I'm Angela.
And I'm Susie.
And we're hell-bent on shedding light on unsolved missing persons cases across Canada,
in an attempt to find the missing piece of the puzzle.
What you're about to listen to is the culmination of countless hours of research in an attempt to gather as many facts as possible about the case by reading news articles, online blogs and forums, and by interviewing friends, family, and people involved in Luke's case. We will discuss different theories and possibilities and pick them apart in order to evaluate their likelihood, or better yet, eliminate them. We weren't there. We don't claim to know what happened. We can only try to paint a picture using the resources that we do have. We don't claim anything to be fact that isn't. We don't claim our interviewees' words to be fact. It's their memory. It's their recollection. It's their truth, and it's their opinion. And everybody's entitled to one. That does not mean we necessarily share any of these opinions. And listeners, please remember, everyone, including the suspects, is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Please bear that in mind as we welcome you to
Season 2, Episode 5, The Voice of Luke.
Just a heads up that there is some foul language and adult content in here. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining us again and for being so patient. We took a little break over the holidays and also dealt with the loss of 2 family members, along with the birth of a new grandchild, and of course, the effects of COVID. We took the time to grieve, celebrate life, heal, and be thankful for all the blessings we do have. It certainly puts things into perspective when you lose someone dear and cannot truly honor them and celebrate their life the way they deserve, simply due to our current restrictions. It did make us appreciate the fact, though, that we will have the opportunity to do so once all of our lives return to normal, whenever that may be. We thought of Luke's family a lot. We thought about how they do not have the opportunity to honor Luke, to have his body, to have a place to visit him. It is so heartbreaking. We know many of our listeners have children of their own and could not fathom bearing this type of tragedy. We can't either. You can all help us and Luke's family by continuing to share his story and the podcast with the hope that we reach the right person. We continue to receive new information along with tips already submitted to police, some of which are currently being investigated. This is wonderful, and this is exactly what we want to happen. We have every confidence that the public will solve this case along with the OPP and North Bay Police Services. To the person or persons that are responsible or who knows who's responsible for Luke's disappearance, we plead to you, please do the right thing. Please give the Joly-Durocher family back their precious Luke. Keeping this to yourself is not a demon you want to live with. It will eat you up. It will haunt you. It will destroy you. And you will not have redemption. Speak up and be free.
Luke's mother, Mick, was gracious enough to give us one of Luke's homemade music CDs. We felt so connected to him as we listened intently to each piece, each one written, composed, sung, and performed on guitar by Luke himself. We were all blown away and honored to hear his voice, and we are happy to share with you all. You will hear Luke's songs throughout this podcast episode. What an aspiring young musician he was, with his whole life ahead of him. With that much drive and dedication to his music, we believe he would have continued on in the music world to progress to bigger things. It was sweet to hear Sara accompany her big brother.
But you become something I can't imagine, and your eyes just simply turn blind.
Luke's younger sister, Sara, sent us a lovely message before Christmas, telling us how much she loved the podcast. We discussed and hoped to do an interview with Sara, but we don't think Sara's quite ready to speak publicly about Luke. She is hurting. Our hearts go out to her and the rest of her family. Susie, I think that you and I can relate to Sara losing an older brother, because I was 19 and you were 17 when we lost our brother, and he was our hero. And that was a long, long time ago, and we've never gotten over it. I mean, it gets easier as the days go by.
It was a mysterious type of death as well. It wasn't expected at all. And Candy's lost an older brother.
A couple of them.
A couple of them. Different types of deaths.
It's never easy.
But yeah,
it's never easy.
It's never easy.
Let's just unravel and settle ourselves and feel away until we get what we want. The places that we go are so unreal.
We wanted to share with you some of the latest information that has come in. We were informed by a listener that on the night Luke went missing, there was a large house party just a block and a half away from 683 Sherbrooke, the apartment Luke was staying at that night. This party was on 2nd Avenue. This was in the area where the old train tracks had been taken out. Literally a 4-minute walk away, with people both inside and occasionally outside smoking. And this person maintains that nobody there saw anything at all. This person later became aware that Luke went missing that same night, and it has always haunted them. They maintain that if something sinister happened to him, it was definitely not in this vicinity.
It makes you wonder, though, doesn't it? Because we think, by all accounts, that he got a ride from the Voyager. His things were back at the apartment, so it makes one assume that he made it back there. If this party was so close, maybe there were people milling about or wandering off to this party. Maybe somebody there saw him. Maybe they didn't see something sinister, but maybe somebody did see him.
So
it's possible.
683 Sherbrooke is on the corner of Sherbrooke and 2nd Avenue, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this big house party was on 2nd Avenue as well.
Right. So if you look on Google Maps, you'll see a big parking lot area, which kind of cuts Sherbrooke Street in half. If you were to walk up kind of this little hill, go through this old parking lot, it's where the tracks used to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the house party that they were at was facing the tracks, or
I don't know exactly where the tracks were, but in that vicinity.
And there were tracks taken out, correct? And we're not positive when.
We're not positive when, and I'm not positive exactly where, but from listeners reaching out and telling us that that is the area that there were old tracks at one point in time that had been removed.
Okay.
And when we were there, Susie, it was just a big lot.
Right. So I think that lot is,
it's not
close.
close.
It was an old parking lot. I think the tracks were down on the other side. They've since been removed. Mm-hmm. I couldn't tell you exactly where. It was dark when we ventured there.
But to me, it doesn't seem close enough that you would notice anything going on at the apartment that the kids were at.
Like I said, unless there was foot traffic and they were using that as a shortcut to get to the party and they happened to see something. Mm-hmm. But this person was very forthcoming and really concerned about Luke and said it always bothered them and really was just trying to say there was a bunch of us and like we never saw a thing. I don't think they by all accounts seemed very honest and not like a guilty party or anything. So that's not where our heads were at, right?
No. But I would like to put a map of that on our Facebook page just for listeners and to kind of clarify, because that's interesting that anyone walking to or from, say, Cecil's or Blur or downtown they would walk right past the house party on 2nd Avenue, right across from the old tracks and right down the street from 683 Sherbrooke.
Another of our top listeners reached out to confirm some details that were a bit sketchy regarding the train tracks in and around the Sherbrooke Street. After hearing episode 4, specifically the alleged altercation on the tracks resulting in Luke's death and disposing of him in the creek, she had a thought with regards to connecting the train tracks to Chippewa Creek. She mentioned an area just 3 blocks over from Sherbrooke Street where the train tracks had been removed. It is adjacent to the creek and the Kinsman Trail. Perhaps the confessor in that story was referring to the old tracks, and that could possibly be.
Right. Well, yeah, like we just said.
We need to find where
You're used to referring to an area about the tracks. I think you would probably always refer to it as the tracks. Just like where Angela and I grew up, there's tracks running there now. It's an old rail trail, but you'd still probably call it the tracks, right? So it was interesting because prior to that, the only other place that we could see on a map where the tracks crossed or were adjacent to Chippewa Creek was like a few kilometers away, maybe 4 or 5 kilometers away, which didn't really make sense for him to be there. So this made more sense. And she had kind of a eureka moment and went, oh, okay. There were the old tracks, there's the trail, and there's Chippewa Creek, and it's real close to 683 Sherbrooke. So she had a very good point.
And I love it that she's listening that intently and providing us with her feedback, because then we go, oh, we didn't think of that. That's fantastic.
She's one of our top listeners, by the way. She's always messaging she and her husband to see when the next episode's coming out. So thank you for listening. We also had an anonymous tip that had been shared with police as well. The tipster was told by an acquaintance that they knew what happened to Luke. The acquaintance mentioned that Luke was in another apartment at 683 Sherbrooke, so not Ken and Kathy's, but another apartment within that same building the night he disappeared, and apparently had taken some drugs with the individuals that lived there and had overdosed. The tipster was told that they hid Luke's body and no one will ever find him. The alleged perpetrator apparently has a criminal past from what we could dig up. Could this be the individual that was mentioned in a comment on Luke's Facebook page? If you girls recall, there was someone that mentioned that there was someone that lived in that house. They didn't know if it was at the time that Luke went missing, but that the person that lived there definitely had a criminal past. So this could be the same person that commenter is referring to.
This could also relate to 2 other tips involving another individual living in a separate apartment within that same building. Remember that guy?
So another person.
Yeah, remember that guy who claimed to have recognized Luke, but tried to steer Mick and Priscilla in another direction?
Right. Yeah. So whether who knows if they were roommates or if they were, because I think there were at least 5. Are there 5 apartments within that building?
4 or 5.
4
I think
to 5.
It's 4. I think it's 4.
So who knows if those
they could have lived
people
together.
were.
That guy that lived there, he also made claims to more than one person that he was witness to Luke's death, or at least walked in on a commotion in a downstairs apartment, which ultimately led to Luke's death. And we've spoken to numerous reputable individuals who told us this same person that lived in the upper apartment claimed that he stored Luke's body in a freezer. Hard to believe people relay stories like that. Like, for drama's sake, is it the truth? Like, if you actually were involved in that, why would you be telling people? Are you doing it only for the drama?
Or to act tough?
Well, we've heard from, like more than one person who we can trust and are reputable, upstanding citizens have come forward with the same story, which police also know.
Yeah.
So
I think the guy's just a big loser and just thinks that it's really cool. Like, yeah, hey man, I killed somebody.
But maybe,
I'd like him to reach out to us.
Yeah, but maybe he wants us. Maybe he wants us to think that. You know what I mean? Oh, they're never gonna assume that I did it. If I keep saying it, they'll believe it. I'm full of shit. And maybe he's really telling the truth.
Yeah, I should correct that because he doesn't claim that he had anything to do with Luke's death. He just helped cover it up, correct?
Yes.
Well, he claimed he
hid the body.
He claimed that he was an accomplice in disposing of his body. And to our knowledge, like I said, he's been interviewed more than once. And according to our source, one source, one or two, he will not give police anything that would incriminate him or lead them to Luke. So he says he's a dead end. Cops can talk to me all they want. I'm a dead end. So, I mean, when it's that out there in the community that he's saying these things and he's also saying he's a dead end, is he a dead end to police because they can't pin it on him? They're never going to find evidence. Is it really true? Or is he just spouting off? Yeah. But then we've also heard stories about this same individual who lived in another apartment at 683 Sherbrooke being actually involved. And we do know that he's very involved in the drug world. And he's also the one that steered Mick and Priscilla in a different direction and said that he recognized Luke.
You know what? I just don't get it.
Right?
Yeah. I just don't get it.
Maybe the two tips and the individuals are tied together somehow. We can't clarify that. We don't know unless one of them wants to call us and tell us if they live together. It is really and truly astonishing just how many sick individuals are out there that would get off on taking credit for a heinous crime. I guess our minds don't work that way. I'm just disgusted.
I just don't get it. There are so many people claiming to have done it, including the two girls charged with intentionally telling falsehoods about others. Maybe they were just pointing the finger at innocent persons to divert attention to the real culprit. They could be working with them. Who knows? It is difficult to comprehend why else they would go to such lengths to implicate innocent people. Like you said, Susie, is there something wrong with them? Do they do it for show? Are they trying to act tougher than they are? Or is there something mentally wrong with them?
That's the only two things that ever make sense to me is there's mental health issues, which then you would want drama and credit, or there'd have to be some kind of mental illness, or you do know who's involved and you're purposely implicating an innocent person because you don't want the real person, who could be yourself or somebody very close to you, to be discovered. So those are the only two things that I can think of.
Well, and it's becoming more and more clear the more time we spend on looking into unsolved missing persons cases that the police have to deal with this stuff. It's not just these isolated cases. It's all the time. All the time. All these people coming forward with false information and stories, and wow.
And look at how
it's mind-blowing.
Look at how frustrated we get because we're trying to weed through the bullshit, and you just want to shake your head and say, why would you do that?
And it's no wonder that these cases become cold because the police are sent in so many directions, wasting time and resources. And the police have to do their due diligence with every single tip that comes in. So it does lead to so much wasted time and effort. Yet another listener reached out with information she shared with police years back after Luke's disappearance. She feels that her tip must not have held any truth, as she was told it was investigated, yet nothing came of it. But she did think of something else that she never thought to mention to police at the time. She often took a shortcut and walked past 683 Sherbrooke on her way to and from work. And on one particular day in the early summer after Luke went missing, she noticed a group of people sitting in a circle in lawn chairs on the front lawn of 683 Sherbrooke. That in itself was not odd, but there was also a Kubota mini excavator parked on the front lawn. And she remembered thinking to herself, what could they possibly be doing with that?
Strangely enough, we had another listener after that who commented that they knew there had been a new cement front porch added to the front of 683 sometime in the years that followed Luke's disappearance. So these were two unrelated comments, but I remember when that one came in, it made me think about the excavator and thought, could that have been why they had that Kubota on the lawn? It really can make your mind wander when thinking of the possibilities, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
We also received a message from a very concerned listener who was privy to a tip given to police within the past 7 months. They were worried that police had not taken the information seriously. This tip was regarding a heated argument over cocaine leading to Luke's death and disposal of his body in a nearby provincial park. The alleged perpetrator currently resides in North Bay, although not from the area originally. The concerned individual has since been assured that detectives were assigned to investigate the tip, but still have some more follow-up that they are currently working on. This is very encouraging, as it assures us as well that every single tip is being thoroughly investigated, whether we, the public, or the tipsters believe it. It is not possible to make every detail of an investigation public, as it would surely hinder it.
I feel alive and well. You were my best friend, but you changed that. And hey, you look pretty.
So we also had a former Voy employee contact us and spend a great deal of time detailing what they believed to be an encounter with Luke at the Voyager the night he went missing. At an unconfirmed time, but suspected to be after midnight, the employee stood behind the front desk inside the hotel lobby. They watched a male accompanied by a younger blonde female walk through the hotel entrance doors of the Voy, followed by who they later thought to be Luke. Luke took a seat in a chair lining the wall in the front lobby as the couple walked on ahead and proceeded up the staircase to the open hallway at the top. The employees said that they did not speak to one another and would not have thought they were together, except that the young woman turned around while on the stairs, made eye contact with Luke, and if they could translate the expression on her face and in her eyes, it was almost apologetic. They knew at that moment that Luke was with them and for some reason waiting downstairs for them. The couple then turned right at the top of the stairs and headed down a hallway to where rooms were located. The employee noticed that Luke, or who they thought to be Luke, was wearing a hoodie and holding something in his hands and looking down at it with his elbows on his knees. A phone, possibly. Within a few minutes, they heard a commotion and a resident made his way to the lobby, warning of a violent altercation involving a knife-wielding patron and a doorman. The rooms in the hotel were also rented out on a monthly basis, just FYI. Luke then proceeded through the same door he entered, through the foyer to the outside doors, and stood under an overhang just outside the lobby entrance to watch as 3 or possibly 4 police cruisers filled the parking lot. The alarmed employee made their way to the outside door and stood with it partially open, blocking their body from the wind and peeking their head out to observe as well. Luke was just a couple of feet away, and they spoke to him, saying, like, who brings a knife to a bar? His response was, no kidding, eh? The employee noticed the colored bands on his braces were the same as one of their family members, so that really stuck in their head. Then they watched as he walked away from the entrance toward the street, avoiding the mass of people outside in the parking lot. He continued on the street until he was out of their line of sight due to vehicles in the lot blocking their view. They then watched as the police released the others that had accompanied the perpetrator with the knife. They recall at least 3 to 4 males piling into a dark-colored van, one person jumping in the van via the side door while it was still in motion and tearing out of the parking lot. They thought of how incredibly bold this was, considering the parking lot was still full of police. The van went in the same direction as Luke had walked 5 minutes prior.
That is crazy information that was shared.
Like, we're assuming
If it's true, that is...
we're assuming it's Luke.
Like, wowza. Like, if he had been at the bar and now he was in the hotel lobby, maybe he left the bar because somebody had threatened him. Maybe they approached him with a knife. Maybe that's why he left the bar for the shelter of the hotel lobby. Maybe he was just talking to those people as he crossed the parking lot. And maybe she looked apologetic because he told them that, hey, I'm leaving because it's really uncomfortable in there. Who knows what happened, but maybe he'd been at the bar and he didn't feel safe, and that's why he ended up in the hotel lobby. Or maybe
Could be. I just feel like if somebody was after me with a knife, I don't think I'd be just sitting there hanging out. I probably would have completely left the entire vicinity and got the hell out of there. I don't think I'd be sitting in a hotel lobby looking all relaxed or standing out there watching. I don't know.
Or maybe she said, hey, follow me, and I'll get you out of here. Who knows? So the employee from the Voyager Inn, saw Luke's posters up at the Voy approximately a week or two later, right? Which we confirmed his father, Rob, had put up. And they instantly recalled talking to Luke and swore to their best of their recollection it was, in fact, him. That person is convinced that they
absolutely
saw Luke
and spoke for hours about it, and doesn't want to give the family false hope, doesn't want to steer anybody in the wrong direction. Such a sweet person, but has bothered them for years and years. And they're convinced it was him. And the bands on the braces were what made them really pay attention to his face. And then, a couple of weeks later, here's his posters, and it's like, oh my God, I talked to that kid, Thank
you for that.
And they said that he didn't appear drunk or nervous, but rather chill. And they maintained they did not see him wearing a coat, and actually recall him unzipping and removing his hoodie at one point while sitting in the lobby. Their recollections were indeed shared with police at the time, but they truly felt they were brushed off. They indicated that there was one room that was inhabited by an alleged meth drug dealer, and that people would come and go all the time. Often, a prop was used to keep the side door open, allowing access to the room when front doors of the hotel were locked after visiting hours. The employee also noted that the male and younger blonde female were not seen again that night. They could have remained in the building until after the employee's night shift ended, or they could have exited out the side door. When the couple reached the top of the stairs, you recall we said they turned to their right in the direction of the drug dealer's room. This employee felt like they were being dissuaded by the police from believing what they saw.
That's interesting.
In speaking to that person, they really did feel like they were being brushed off. And they were a little nervous. Like they were nervous that, I didn't see what I saw. I'm telling you that that's what I saw. So my initial thought, and I think our initial thoughts were maybe there was an investigation going on there already. Police don't want somebody going off and talking and giving details away that could hinder it. That could be one reason.
Well, have we not heard from other employees that quite often they saw multiple police cruisers parked outside?
A couple other people had mentioned that in that general vicinity of the side door, which you could literally look up and see that specific room that they were speaking about, and just across the street, that cruisers used to sit there all the time. So they weren't unmarked cars. So you're not undercover. So I don't know if you're just scoping out the joint, waiting to catch somebody or what the case was.
But it really makes you wonder if this employee, as we say, was dissuaded from believing what they saw. What was going on? And why did it take 8 years for the police to come forward and say that Luke was seen at the Voy? I mean, 8 years to interview all the people there and confirm. That's a long time.
Well, I also know that this person said that there were a few other employees that said that they didn't want to have anything to do with anything. They don't want to get involved. And understandably so. There are some shady characters that once inhabited the Voyager in those rooms. Mind you, I've spoken to the owner. I know that they've gone to great lengths. The new owner has gone to great lengths to clean up the Voy. It's got a way better reputation than it used to have years ago. And I mean, we've even heard stories about sex trafficking in there. Whether they're true or not, we've heard them. We've heard that North Bay is the hub of the sex trafficking.
Absolutely.
And that's where young girls were kept. God only knows what else was going on in there, but it kind of, it gives the listeners a good feel of that area. And some of the characters that were there, because I mean, we know people that have gone to that bar, and they're not all bad people, of course.
No, because they don't know what's going on in the background. But when now we know what was going on in the background back then, it explains a police presence, huge police presence, and the hesitancy of a lot of people to speak to the police because they don't want to get involved because they're scared. They just want to go to work and go home.
They want to go to work and do their job, and they want to kind of turn a blind eye to the crap that's going on out of fear.
And they're scared. Yeah,
for sure. And I mean,
and back then the Voy would rent a room by the month. So if people had enough money for a month, then they take it. And so you're not talking about people that are long-term or really.
Probably even more short-term than a month, I would imagine.
Maybe a night.
I think you can just go and kind of go do your partying, and it was known for that.
Yes, it's better now.
Please listen to our friends at Please Bring Me Home while they share one of their cases with you. We'll be right back. During every episode, we feature a missing person case from our friends at Please Bring Me Home. The Please Bring Me Home team is made up of various people who possess a wide range of skills and who are committed to raising awareness and keeping missing persons cases in the public eye. Their main objective is to bring closure to the family and friends of missing loved ones across Canada.
My name is Katja Kuschmann, and I'm a member of the research and investigation team for the organization Please Bring Me Home. In this feature, we want to draw your attention to a 9-year-old case, the case of missing Richmond Hill resident Cheryl Rowe. At the time of her disappearance in December 2011, Cheryl was 45 years old, a Caucasian female of thin build, a height of 5 feet, with brown hair and brown eyes. Reportedly, she was last seen wearing dark pants, a light blue two-tone jacket, and a white baseball hat with a green leaf on the front. Her shoes were purple and black Adidas running shoes. The following is a short summary of the night Cheryl went missing. It was just before Christmas, in December 2011, and relatives report Cheryl leaving the family home in Richmond Hill, Ontario, with a bag in hand at around midnight. She wanted to meet with her daughter to deliver the bag of fresh clothes, but decided to first make a quick stop at a residence on Restaurant Crescent in Richmond Hill. She was picked up by a friend who drove her there. Cheryl had previously spoken with her daughter on the phone and had assured her that she won't be much longer, that she's just making one stop at the Restaurant Crescent residence. But afterwards, in the early morning hours of December 22nd, 2011, Cheryl did not show up at the agreed meeting place where her daughter was waiting. and she was never heard from again. Her daughter reported her missing almost immediately. Before her disappearance, Sara Rowe was very close with her family and always kept in contact with them. So the last time she was seen in the area of Reswan Crescent, near Yonge Street and Carville Road in Richmond Hill, Ontario, December 2011. It has been 9 years. Her family needs closure. We know that there is someone out there who knows something. If you know what happened to Sara Rowe, or if you remember seeing her, please contact us. To report a tip, call our anonymous tip hotline at 226-702-2728. You can also visit our website, pleasebringmehome.com, to find further ways to contact us.
If you have any information about the disappearance of Cheryl Rowe, please reach out to pleasebringmehome.com. If you have any information about the disappearance of Luke Joly-Durocher, please contact the North Bay Police Service at 705-497-5555. You can also submit a tip to Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. That's 1-800-222-TIPS or online at nearnorthcrimestoppers.com.
If neither of those options suit you and you have something you would like to or need to share about Luke's story, please consider us as an option. We can be contacted at sheddinglightpodcast@gmail.com. You can call or text us at 437-374-3030, or you can visit us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube and message us on any of these platforms. If you're afraid to share what you know, you can remain anonymous. Our podcast can be found at sheddinglight.buzzsprout.com, or you can find us on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher. The list goes on. Please subscribe to Shedding Light. You can rate us on your Apple Podcasts, and please consider taking a moment to write a review. It would be much appreciated.
Yesterday I thought I died, and you were by my side, waiting till gravity holds and meets us both. It makes us feel like we're so deep into, and I think that we should have been two lost souls just looking for a ride. Corner of my head says we should be friends forever. That's all that counts.
Like I had said at the beginning of the podcast, we've just lost 2 more people in our lives, and I'm going to get all teary.
I know.
But anyhow, I think being able to give them, not being able to have a place to go and say, okay, this is, I have a necklace with my friend's remains in them, or my mother-in-law is sitting on top of my buffet right now in a box. I can go there until we can have an appropriate funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Candy, you can be near your loved ones until you can have an appropriate funeral. They can't right now. They have nowhere to go.
I know.
They don't have a place. And it's just that unknown, that sickening. It's just it's just bullshit to have anybody have to go through that in their life. It's just such a, you have one life and you're already robbed of somebody. Now your life is consumed with never knowing, just never knowing.
And I personally think if it did happen to me, the day they went missing would be the day my life stopped. I don't think I could mentally go forward from there. Like I would get up and do what I had to do, but I think I'd always be stuck on that day until I got them back somehow.
I know I would be. And I think some people, and I imagine for some family members, it's really difficult to be in that all the time because you want to be positive. and you feel that, looking and always looking and searching could have some negative impact on you, on your health. But yet, how can you stop?
Mhm.
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
And we just wish nothing but the best for this family, that one day, it eases up a bit. We mentioned an online blog, which was shared with us a few times, and we have been unable to confirm the author, who claims to be a friend of Luke's and the rest of the friends that Luke was with that night. We thought it was interesting enough to share with you. It read, "On this day, 6 years ago, one of my friends disappeared. Luke Joly-Durocher was last seen leaving Cecil's Eatery after being denied admission because of his level of intoxication. He was with 4 other people who I knew and I still know. They went in and he left to one of their apartments where his coat and cell phone were found, but he wasn't. His debit card was then found a week later in a snowbank just down the road. The security cameras at Cecil's show him walking away from the bar and various other businesses. Piece in a timeline, but it doesn't add up. This guy was my friend, and it's the 6th anniversary since anybody knew anything about his whereabouts. How do these things happen? If anybody wants more info, I'll be refreshing the page for a little while. There are some interesting tidbits about disinformation, what we as friends think happened, and even a psychic view if anybody wants to prod. Everybody just wants you home, buddy."
And the blog continued on. A psychic was called upon, not knowing anything about Ontario or Luke or the area, and brought up a few details that stuck with the skeptics. Firstly, the dogs were led to a creek where they traced his scent, but nothing was pulled from the creek. Unbeknownst to the psychic, she also mentioned seeing the word Sherbrooke in her vision, which was later shortened to Brook. A brook is the body of water that the dogs were led to, but what they don't account for was that the apartment they were staying at was on a street called Sherbrooke. The psychic says she felt negative energy associated with him and a fight or flight response. Luke was known to have medical problems throughout his life and was diabetic despite only being 19 at the time of his disappearance. This would coincide with the crash that diabetics feel when they can't regulate their bodies. The psychic stuff is all published online. It's the only one of its sort and will be found if you Google it. It's all there. As for our friends, we knew that he sold drugs. That's the only hard fact. He may have been gun running, meeting an older married woman at a motel, meeting somebody to pay off a debt, because these were all said at the time of disappearance, and most have truth to them. But what are the chances that you run into somebody you owe money to in the hour it takes to walk a main street at night? 2 women went to jail 2 years ago for disinformation about what happened to them, and the police were sent on a goose chase all over my town and the town they were partying in. Unquote.
So it's important to remember that this person says these things may be possible. So we're not, and it was written a few years ago. We're not saying any of them are true. We're just repeating a blog that was online, and it's obviously from a friend of Luke's. Candy, you thought it sounded like a female.
It does sound like a female to me. Usually men are a little bit harsher and, not as descriptive. So to me, it sounds like a female, and obviously from Temiskaming, because if they're still from that town. So,
well, I have to question how close they were to Luke, because they state he was 19 and he was not 19. He was 20 when he disappeared.
And that they knew he had diabetes.
He turned 20 in June too. So it wasn't like June 28th. So he was 20 for a while. And yeah, they said diabetes. And that's something that we did talk to his mother, Mick, about. And I recall her saying that he was the type of kid that didn't like doctors too much. But I do remember his mother, Mick, stating that he did display some medical issues, and that he was the type of kid that didn't like to go to the doctor. So when we mentioned diabetes, she didn't seem shocked at all. She said it's a possibility.
Well,
and he was never diagnosed.
Yeah, and his symptoms point at him being diabetic, even though
For sure.
we
The sweating, right?
Yeah. And we don't believe that he was ever officially diagnosed, but it does seem like he was diabetic. And maybe that was just something that he and his friends acknowledged as.
They could have looked up the symptoms and it could have said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We also thought it was important to mention that we think we may have given the impression that the entire Sherbrooke neighborhood is not so desirable. And that's not our intention, of course. And we certainly don't want to offend anyone who does reside there. It has been brought to our attention from some great people in the neighborhood that there are definitely some beautiful older family homesteads that still remain. One listener, in fact, stated that things had definitely started changing in the neighborhood at least 10 years ago. And he was a bit nervous to let his younger children out of his sight. He had gone to live with his parents for a while with his children. And he said it wasn't like when he grew up, it had changed a lot. And he was really nervous for his kids being in the neighborhood, even in the yard. So it is a mix, really. It's student housing, because a lot of those family homesteads don't get passed along to the next generation.
Well, and they're so huge.
They're left with selling these big houses, right? So investors come in and buy them, and it turns it into student housing or whatever housing, lots of apartments. There's some original family homes and some definite drug houses, unfortunately.
And I think
there are some lovely folk there.
Yeah. And our focus has been on only the negative aspects of it. So we just wanted listeners to be aware that it's not all negative. It's some beautiful family homes and great people.
Although you can see that there are numerous stories and tips out there regarding what really happened to Luke, they all can't be true. But maybe a few of them are intertwined somehow. The important thing to remember is that there's a key piece of information that someone doesn't realize they have or are afraid to come forward with. We have heard from a few different listeners that they are in fact too afraid to come forward and go to police for fear of going to jail. You will not go to jail for reporting to the police anything you know or have heard about Luke's disappearance. People seem scared about that. If you are asked to testify and swear under oath that something false is fact, that is a lie. But simply sharing what you think is possibly helpful in finding Luke, that is heroic. And don't forget, there is a $50,000 reward for any information leading to the whereabouts of Luke. We just need to find him. Please.
This is the best night I've ever had. You make my legs shake. I got your trust. You gave me your love. I got you where I want you. Please don't.
I want to thank Mick, Rob, and the rest of the family for sharing Luke's CD with us. The talent that Luke possessed is remarkable. You could really feel his emotions through his music. I can only imagine Luke writing the words and directing it towards that special person. To me, it sounded of a young man in love, but for whatever reason, it wasn't meant to be. Maybe also a little confusion on where his life was going. Here are some of the lyrics that I would like to share with you. Let's just unravel and settle ourselves and peel away until we get what we want. The places that we go are so unreal. Bring back the old me. These were the good old days. What the fuck were we doing there? We should have all known now what we were doing there. I can't think straight. There is such a deepness in his lyrics. This kind of old soul maturity that he portrays in his music. I really find his style is reminiscent to a few different musicians or bands. I hear Blind Melon, the Goo Goo Dolls, Tragically Hip, and a little bit of the Doors. It is sad because who knows how far Luke could have gone with his music. He certainly had the passion for it. It is our honor to showcase Luke's music on this podcast. I understand with Luke's music, how important it is, because all your frustrations, all your anxiety and what you're going through, he's getting out with his music, and he's sharing it with whoever will listen. And my son does the same thing now, and I just think it's...
Your son and your daughter both
are very
yeah,
inclined.
both very talented.
And it's such an outlet for them.
It's a really great escape, isn't it? It's a good outlet.
Yeah, it was so beneficial to my family. And I understand what Luke was trying to express, and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. His father did say, when we spoke to him one of the first times, that he had a really hard time sometimes listening to Luke's music, because he said they had the CD, and remember he and Sara drove into North Bay one day and he put the CD on, and it just changed their whole day, their whole mood. Of course it would. Like, I couldn't imagine hearing my kid's voice and then how you're going to go on about your day all cheery. You want it to bring you joy, but all it is a reminder that they're not there anymore.
See, I'd want to hear it, but like you said, once I hear it, it's just going to bring me right back to that they're gone. But I'd still want to hear it because it's them. So
I remember listening to Luke's two closest friends when they were talking about their recollections of Luke. One of the biggest and boldest memories they have is what a huge part music played in his life and how important it was to him. And I think we'll let the listeners know that it's our plan.
Yes, a big thank you to Steve McPhail, Sonny Boy Mick. He has been fantastic for us with the writing of our song, and now taking Luke's CD and putting it digital. We appreciate you.
And we're going to put that onto, hopefully, YouTube. We'll do a little video, and Luke's music will be available digitally.
We're also working on a video. We took a trip to North Bay, to the area that Luke walked that night, or which we presume he walked that night, up from Sherbrooke to Cecil's to the Voyager, and thought we'd share it with people that aren't familiar with the area. And it was on slow-mo.
Thank you.
The whole time.
That was me.
So Candy's son is going to, although he hates us for it, he's going to put it together for us. So
yes.
You'll eventually be able to watch that as well. We mentioned Luke's friends and how their biggest recollections of him were all surrounded music. And Bob had mentioned how excited he got when he gave him a Walkman. Remember, he thought it was a Walkman that he gave him. So that always made me smile. That was cute. It made him smile too. Speaking of his friends, some of you out there are probably wondering where everyone is almost 10 years later. Well, from all accounts, Kathy and Ken, as you recall, the couple that lived in the apartment, moved out of the Sherbrooke Street apartment when they got home from Florida. Remember, Kathy came home early because of an alleged violent altercation with Ken while on holidays in Florida together. Well, apparently they moved to another location together, away from North Bay, not exactly sure where, we won't comment. And eventually Kathy ended up out west in the years following, is married with children now. And Ken, well, he moved to Texas almost straight away after they left their second place together, then to Mexico. And Tim and Bob are believed to be in Chippewa still.
Mexico?
Yeah, I was looking at your face. Mexico. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mexico and Texas. So
well, yeah,
as far away as you can get.
Well, and that hasn't been totally confirmed, that the Mexico part. It seems like it might
have been a visit. Might have been a visit, an extended visit.
Because it's almost...
And he was definitely in Texas, and it's like, WTF.
I know. Are you running away from something?
Yeah. Who knows?
I'm going to say it.
I mean, we don't want to assume anything, but he could just be running away from the whole incident itself, right? That could have a huge impact on somebody's life and change them and just never want to look back. So he could be just running from the actual fact that Luke disappeared while he was with him.
And we've had some people mention to us, they wondered if maybe Luke had left to go to Florida with Kathy and Ken when, come the Saturday, nobody could get in touch with him, or the other roomies and the other friends didn't know what happened to him. They thought, oh, maybe he got up early and left to go to Florida. Okay. But when sharing Luke's story with one of our friends, they came up with the question, what if Luke did leave in the Jeep with them, dead or alive? Not something we had thought of, but still an obvious question in the minds of some listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Many listeners have contacted us with questions that linger in their minds as we all try to piece together this mystery. One of them asked, who did he get a ride from? Do you know who he got a ride from?
That was a question. And did we ever consider that he was not allowed into Cecil's, perhaps because he didn't have his identification with him, which I thought was a great question.
Mm-hmm. And it's a possibility too,
Mm-hmm.
right? So another question we've been asked is, what section of the tracks was he allegedly beat up on? Like what area, what exact location? And we don't know the answer to that either, because it's just a rumor or a story that goes around.
No, and it's nice that we do have people reach out and try and fill in the blanks, like we had talked earlier, our great fan there that called in.
We encourage it.
They're all great questions, yeah, but unfortunately we, like Angela said, we don't have the answers.
Well, we're pretty sure the police have most of those answers, but those aren't things that they share with the public, and for good reason, right? Hold back evidence, it's called. And what I'm about to say right now, it floors me that, well, I'll just tell you, so many locations that have been mentioned in regards to where Luke rests: a pig farm in Earlton, Chippewa Creek, North Bay, an area provincial park, a cemetery, sacred native ground behind Tembec in Temiskaming, a lagoon strewn along the highway, and the list goes on. It's mind-blowing just how many theories or rumors have emerged over the years, and the family is aware of all of it. And each and every time new information comes out, they get their hopes up a little. Not like in the beginning, though. They've been let down time and time again, and now they've become numb and jaded. We can only pray that 2021 is the year that Luke's family gets the answers that they've been waiting for.
Unfortunately, drugs seem to be a common theme in many of the theories surrounding what happened to Luke. They are fairly cheap if you had a minor habit and easily attainable. Meth seems to be the popular drug of choice to so many nowadays, which eventually leads to crime. And not just petty crime. People on meth demonstrate extreme erratic behavior. It is so unfortunate that so many of our young people are subjected to it, and it's so easy to get caught up in. We are not saying that Luke was involved in drugs at all, but merely considering the fact that he could have associated with people that were.
There's a strong likelihood that drugs were involved somehow. Either Luke had a small drug debt, or the person or persons responsible were under the influence and not behaving or thinking rationally. Never mind the pandemic we're currently in. This is a man-made epidemic. It is so sad and sickening, and it's hitting closer to home every day.
It's beyond extremely sad. It's disgusting and heartbreaking. And I think we've all seen the impacts it has on society.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't discriminate, because it doesn't matter if you have money, education, you get caught up, you're caught up.
And like they say with meth, once is too many times.
Oh, you take that first hit and then you're done, you're hooked, and then there's no way out.
No. And it's the reason behind so much crime now. So was Luke the victim of a random act by a person or persons under the influence of drugs while near the tracks? Was he killed over a drug debt? Did he fall prey to a jealous boyfriend or a partner? Was he blamed for a drug theft? Did he overdose in the very building where he was supposed to be staying that fateful night? Was he kept unwillingly by a couple interested in having their way with him? Can we rule any of these out? We can't. We can't really rule any of them out. Without the answer, every one of these is still possible.
Absolutely. Luke's sister wrote a comment in response to her mother's Facebook post of a tribute video of Luke where you can hear his voice. She wrote, "Mom, you are so strong. I love you. It's nice to hear his voice, but we don't know if we can hear it again. Not knowing is so painful beyond anything I have ever felt. I miss him. I wish I could find him, even just for you, Mom."
As we find ourselves at the end of another season, we feel that this investigation is very active in comparison to other unsolved cases. The police could very well be closer than we think to finding the answer. Luke's entire family and police have been very accommodating as we all share the same goal. We are very hopeful and continue to pray for this beautiful family that they're able to finally bring Luke home. Please help answer our prayers.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.